Okay, this is a reaction video. Okay, as you can tell, I am, if you've seen any of my videos, I am not where I normally am. I am, let's see, I've been to London this year. I've been to Los Angeles. I didn't do a video from Los Angeles though. But I've been to Los Angeles and now I'm down in Melbourne, Florida, or Indialantic, Florida. But okay, what's the one thing you never thought you'd have to explain to an adult? Well, let's see what this is. What's the one thing you never thought you'd have to explain to an adult?
If you work in customer service, what's the one thing you never thought you would have to explain to an adult?
Yes, it's mine, baby. That water doesn't have calories.
Yeah, water does not have calories. That is true.
All right, let's get to it. So I was 16 years old. I worked at the Wendy's. This middle-aged blonde woman comes up to me and I'm working the counter and goes, "Oh my God, the water here is so good. Does it have calories?" And I
Does it have calories? That's funny.
was an asshole. I looked at her and said, actually, yeah, it does. It has about 17 calories. We tend to put a little bit of Splenda in it from the machine to make sure you guys like it, and so you guys get more of it. Completely jipping the shit out of her. She looked at me with such intense disbelief. I just blew all the paradigms. She goes, "Wow, that's so smart."
How much did you charge her for this water?
And I'm sitting there agreeing as I write my 2 weeks notice with blood. And she runs off and then the person behind her goes, "Is there really 17 calories in the water?" I said, "No, I'm just bored."
So I used to work at guest services on board a cruise ship, and a guest was really, really mad, came up to the desk, started yelling and pounding on the desk, and said, "I booked a Seaview cabin. All I can see is the parking lot."
My guess is you haven't left port yet. Is that correct?
Sir, my apologies, but actually we haven't left port yet, so
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
in an hour when we leave, you will have an ocean view cabin. That's impossible. You can't work magic. How can you change that in an hour? Well, sir, call me back in an hour and let me know.
I got this one. I got it. Customer comes in
That's funny. That's funny.
and says, "Hi, I'd like to fax something." I go, "Okay, what's the fax number?" They gave it to me. I go, "All right, and what are you faxing?" She hands me $200 bills. I go, "What are you doing?" She goes, "That's what I want to fax." I go, "You can't fax money." You would have thought that I told her she's not allowed to breathe oxygen. What do you mean I can't? They need that money today.
Then you go to Western Union or somebody like that. You don't go to a fax company and have them fax the money. It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't matter. This is just going to send a picture. Technically, it's counterfeiting. No, I just need to fax it to them. They're not going to get money. They'll get pictures of money. What do you mean? No, don't send pictures of money. Fax them the money. Y'all, this went on for 20 more minutes.
Wow. That's amazing. Did not understand that you can't fax money.
She was 100% convinced that our machine was going to take the money, break it down into millions of little pieces, and send it on over. Just like Willy Wonka.
Or it's like, well, or Star Trek, transport it. Oh.
You don't remember, I used to work at Sonic. I definitely have a lot of freaking stories, but this one. So we were kind of really slow one day. I want to say it was like raining real bad or something. Well, I take this lady's order, I tell her her total, and she kind of speeds up to the window real fast. Before I can even open the window, she's sitting there knocking on it. So I was just kind of like, yes ma'am, you had this? And she was like, yeah, I don't understand the price. So I sit there showing her the receipt, and she was like, well, on your menu, it says it's this much, but the total is this much. And I was like, oh, ma'am, that's after tax. She's like, what do you mean tax? Mind you, this is like a 40-something-year-old woman. And I'm like,
Yeah, this isn't Europe. This is like when I went to England and I bought 3 Arsenal shirts at $80 a piece. It was $240. There was no after sales tax. And if I'd done that in the United States, I would have to pay tax afterwards.
tax, tax. She's like, I didn't agree to pay tax. I was like, ma'am, that's not something you agree to. It's just how it works. She was like, well, I'll pay for the food and not the tax. I was like, it doesn't work that way. You have to pay the tax. He's like, whatever, I'm not dealing with this, and just sped away. Apparently this grown-ass woman's never heard of the concept of taxes.
I have another one. Woman came in wanting to do a return. I was like, okay, looks right here that you did paid using a credit card, so it'll automatically go back on the credit card. Hands her the receipt after the transaction. You're all set. Have a nice day. What? You're all set. Have a nice day. But how
She wanted cash because she paid with it. Yeah, I get it. She wanted cash. Instead, she ends up getting it back on her card, and that's not what she wanted.
do I know that you did the return? Well, you have the receipt in your hand that is showing that the money went back to your card. But how do I know that you actually put it back on my credit card? Because it says on the bottom of the receipt that the money went back to your credit card.
Yeah, I used to work at Best Buy. I used to do that, and I never got this. I never got a person saying, "How do I know the money is back on my card?" Usually, you just told them, it was on the receipt. That's what you handed it to them. You took the merchandise back and you put it back on the card. That's just how it was done. Everybody knew that's how it was done. What you say is that if somebody asks that question, is you tell them that check your card, your credit card. You'll see it back on there. Okay, it may take a day or two, but it'll be back there. Trust me.
But how do I know that you didn't just do it as cash and pocketed the money? Because the bottom of the receipt says your credit card number instead of cash. But I still don't know if you pocketed the money or not. Ma'am, it says on the bottom of your receipt that it went back to your credit card. She called customer service right in front of me asking if they could verify that I did the return, and they said, well, do you have the receipt showing that the money went back to your credit card? Yes. Then she did the return for you and you don't have anything to worry about.
I don't eat lobster because it's alive when they kill it.
I don't eat lobster because I'm allergic to shellfish.
I'll have a steak.
Oh, buddy.
How do you get all the boats in the harbor parked in the same direction?
How?
What's the name of this lake?
That's the Atlantic Ocean.
But the best, the ultimate winner. I had a man come into a restaurant I worked at and asked for drawn butter with his lobster, and I brought him some drawn butter with his lobster, and he was like, this isn't real butter. And I was like, sir, it is real butter. And he was like, can you melt a stick of butter and bring it out? And I was like, sure. So I melted a stick of butter and I brought it out, and he was like, I don't want this because it looks the same as the other stuff. And I was like, because that's also butter.
This is butter.
And he was like, can you take the little butter foils and unwrap them and melt them? Because that's real butter. So I did that. And I brought it out, and he was like, this also looks the same. And I was like, because it's all fucking butter!
I cannot help you,
I can't
sir.
help you! I can't help you!
I mean, the only thing that would have worked in that situation is if you took him back there, you unpacked the butter in front of him and then melted it and then brought it out with him watching it. That's the only way that would have worked.
So I used to manage a restaurant, and one day this lady comes in and she's complaining about her tacos. So I go over and talk to her, and I'm like, what seems to be the problem with the tacos? And she looks at the menu, she's like, aren't they supposed to be soft shell? I'm like, well, they are soft shell. She's like, mine were hard. And I look down at her plate and seeing what leftovers there are, and there's no parchment paper. So I ask her, like, ma'am, did you eat the parchment paper around the tacos? She like, pulls this tiny little speck of paper. She's like, you mean this? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, I thought those were the taco shells. No, that was the parchment paper. She ate.
Now, one would have thought you would have tasted the paper and would have wondered what was going on there and gotten the parchment paper taken off, because parchment paper is pretty distinctive. It doesn't taste very good.
2 full pieces of parchment paper wrapped around her tacos. The entire things, they were all gone. And then I sat there and explained to her the difference between parchment paper and taco shells.
Working at the bank, you see literally like the
That's pretty funny too. That's amazing.
dumbest people. I'm not even trying to be mean, but I swear this is probably like one of the ones that stand out the most to me, because I'm like, oh my God, like, how old are you? 5? So this non-customer, if you guys work at the bank, you already know what that means. This non-customer wanted to cash a check that did not even belong to us, meaning.
Right. If you work back at Chase and somebody brings in a check to cash and it's from like Fifth Third, okay, it's something that you just can't do. It's just something. I didn't work at the teller, but I don't think you can do that.
The check was not from our bank. It was from bank XYZ. This guy wanted to cash a check when we couldn't even verify funds. And he said, well, call the company. I'm like, sir, we need.
Yeah, if you call the company, chances are the other bank is not going to verify the funds.
Need a checking account in order for me to cash the check against, because if this check was to come back.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, if you have your own bank account, okay, at say Chase, and you bring in a check to cash at Fifth Third, and you have $5,000, and the check's for $500, they will do that because they will just take it out. If the check doesn't return, then they'll get the money that way. But yeah, that's what she's talking about there.
we can deduct the funds from your account. What do you not understand? We cannot cash this check unless you have an account with us. And he said, well, you can't just call. It's a bank. All the banks are the same. Sir, no, that's not how it works.
No, all the banks are not the same. Again, if you're banking with Chase and you put Fifth Third, Bank of America, they do not verify funds. They just will not do that for us, okay, at Chase, okay, and neither will we do it for them. It's just the way it is, and if you bring in a check to cash from XYZ Bank, like she said, and you don't have a bank account, you don't have funds to cover it, they're not going to do it. It's just simple. It's just not going to happen.
Works. What the?
I've got the perfect thing for this. I used to work in a Barnes & Noble. Now, if you don't know, the only people that shop at Barnes & Noble are old people. Other people can shop there too, but it's less likely because during the day, the retirees come out and they come buy books. Also, the only people to actually buy those sexy novels are over 65, but that's another story. Anyway, a guy came up and he had a book that had the little torn edges. It's just an aesthetic choice that publishers make sometime when they want to make their books look old. But anyway, he brings it to the counter and he says, "This book is ruined." I said, "No, that's just a choice by the publisher. It's meant to look rugged. It's totally fine." And he says, "I've never seen another book like this." And I said,
That doesn't mean they don't make them like that.
"Well, that doesn't mean that there aren't books like that." And he said, "I haven't seen any other books like that." So
Again, that doesn't mean they don't make them like that just because you haven't seen one.
I point to the nearest shelf and say, "Here are 3 different books that have this exact same thing." And he says, "I don't believe it." Follow for part 2. Okay, part 2. So this guy that thought that the little tears on the ends of pages for aesthetic choice was a mistake. He doesn't believe me after I show him these other books that have the exact same choice. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the thing that Taylor Despero has on the edge of it, if you remember that. Anyway, I show him the books, and he seems disappointed, and so he walks away. Later, he comes back to the counter with 3 other books, and he says, "These are also ruined." And I say, "Well, no, that's my point, is that it's common across books. It's not that the books are ruined, it's... Not all of our books are ruined." And then he leaves again, and he actually comes back with a different book, which is actually torn, but in a totally different place. And if you know what I'm talking about, you would know that the little tears on the ends of the...
Now, I don't know what he's talking about, but I believe what he's saying is that he's just got a book. You know, it's just how they do books, just how they do it. And, you know, that it's not nothing wrong with it. But the guy is clearly out to prove this guy wrong, and he's not going to be successful.
The pages happen every 20 pages or so, in the exact same way. They're for sure manufactured. But this guy could not believe it, would not believe it. My manager ended up coming up and confirming what I said, and he just left.
Hey, welcome. How may I help you today? Hi, may I have one of these raspberry donuts? Sure thing. Do you want it in a bag or do you want it on a serviette to eat now? I'll have it in a bag to take away, please. Yeah, no worries. And do you want to pay by cash or by card? I'll just tap my phone if that's all right. Yeah, go ahead. It's ready for you. Bing. There we go. Thank you very much. Have yourself a good day. Thank you. You too. By the way, what is a raspberry?
You just bought a raspberry donut. You paid for it. Now you're asking what a raspberry is?
Well, it's a fruit, isn't it?
This is not really nothing to explain, but this is just a little rant. If your total came out to $17.67 and you already gave me the $20 bill and I already put it in the register, I don't want to hear about the 50 cents you found. Keep the same energy. Because now I got to mess around. You give me the 50 cents, I got to mess around and do the Pythagorean theorem trying to figure out your change. I'm not a calculator, ma'am.
This icy I just bought?
Yeah, if you paid, if it's $17.67 and you already paid $20 and you find 50 cents and she's already taken the money, she can't, yeah, I get it. You can't just, yeah.
I don't want it anymore. What? This icy is too cold.
It's an icy. It's supposed to be cold.
You want me to put it in the microwave? Okay, smartass, that's incredibly rude. How about you go get your boss? Yo. Hi, I just bought this icy from this gentleman, and I want to return it because it's too cold. Well, ma'am, you can't return... Wait, what? I said this icy is too cold.
It's supposed to be cold. That's why it's called an icy.
Bitch, you want me to put it in the microwave?
Hi, what can I get started for you today? Hi, I just want a medium latte and a medium mocha with whipped cream. Awesome. All right, your total for that's going to be $8.45. Thank you. Anything else I can get for you? The drinks? Oh, of course. I'm sorry. I actually haven't left this spot yet, but once I do leave this spot, I will go ahead and go get started on your drinks, and then once I finish them, I will bring them out when they are ready. You will have to wait, though.
Oh, what time's the 5 o'clock?
Interesting.
Clock parade? It's at 5 o'clock. It was in the question. It's like the magic. It was in you the whole time.
So I used to work at KFC, and it's very common for people to come in and say, oh,
I don't understand that last one, but okay, whatever.
oh, I want a bargain bucket with no leg pieces. But this one day, a policeman came in and he said, I want a 12-piece bargain bucket with all breast pieces. Be prepared, I'm about to say breast.
Well, breast pieces, that means all white meat. That's usually more, if I understand correctly, and that's not a bargain because white meat is usually more expensive. That's usually how things are done at KFC, or at least most chicken places, fried chicken places.
A lot of times. So I said, oh, do you mean the boneless bucket with the chicken breast strips? He said no. He wanted a 12-piece bargain bucket with all breast pieces. So I told him no, sorry, he couldn't have that. So he went into this long speech about how he's a policeman and the least that I could do is sort him out a bucket with all of these breast pieces. And in the end, I had to interrupt and say, sir, there is one breast piece on a chicken. That is 12 dead chickens. We don't even cook that many chickens at once. You're completely missing the chicken logistics. He was real mad about it, but we move. About 12 breast pieces. Get out, son.
If it says...
Well, I mean... Well, okay, I see your point to some extent.
50% off and the item is £20. It will be a tenner.
Yeah, if it's 50% off and it's £20, it'd be £10. That makes sense.
This is a cute story. I worked.
And what? I guess the person didn't understand that, didn't get that.
At the Apple Store for like 7 years, and one of my favorite interactions I'll always remember is this old lady came up to me and said, I'm here to buy the internet. And I was like, what?
Buy the internet?
And she's like, I need to get the internet. Where is it? And she gestured to her wall of product. So I was like, okay, hold on. So I chat with her for a little bit, and I figure out she lives alone, and her grandson said she needs to get internet. So she comes into the Apple Store, having never been, thinking internet is like a product. Like you get internet off the shelf, come home, and now you have internet. So I was like, oh no.
Well, look, that's okay. Okay, look, I get what is, that's one thing you never have to explain to an adult, and that does definitely qualify. But yeah, I mean, look, if she may be old, she may not understand what the internet is, she may not have ever used the internet, so cut her a little slack.
So I explained to her A to Z what the internet is. Called a cable company that can come to her house, set her up an appointment. I explained to her she's going to hate talking to them anytime she has to, but it's part of life, get ready. Set her up with a monthly plan. Got her an iPad, showed her how to use iMessage so she can talk to her grandson and how to like Google stuff and whatever. But I will always just remember the old lady who came into the Apple Store to buy the internet.
Again, I get it. But she was an old lady. She probably didn't hear it. Look, my grandmother, okay, God rest her soul, okay, in 2005, 2004, 2003, she's living in a place and we get her a cell phone so that she doesn't have to get up every time she's going to be talking on the phone to somebody. Well, I'm over there and the phone rings for her and she gets up and she walks over, halfway across the room, plugs it in to talk. And I'm saying, Nana, you don't have to do that. You just need to plug it in at night, and then during the day, just sit where you're at, because she's partially blind too. And she just could not grasp the fact that she had a cell phone and she didn't need to plug it in. She just couldn't grasp it. And it broke my heart, but it was true.
If you work in customer service, what's the one thing you never thought you would have to explain to an adult? I'll go first. A woman called me and asked where her item for delivery was. I asked her, what's the date that you placed your order? She gave me the date of 2 days prior. I reminded her that when she purchased the item, she agreed and acknowledged the fact that it would take a week for her item to arrive. And she said, yeah, I'm aware of that, but it's been 2 days. Where is it? So I said,
well, if it's been 2 days and it takes a week, then there are 5 days left. It'll be there in 5 days. And she said no. And so I said, well, when did you expect it to arrive? And she said, by now. And I said, but it hasn't been a week. And she insisted that it had. So I was like, ma'am, how many days do you think are in a week? Then she hung up and we never heard from her again.
Well, that's fascinating. You know, she doesn't know how long a week is. Or if she does know how long a week is, she does. Well, yeah, I get it. Look, these are things you never thought you'd have to explain to an adult. I get it. Fair enough. But, well, please click like, share, and subscribe for me. I would appreciate it. And have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.